All right, everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at sales efficiency. Um, it's always been a hot topic, but especially now as we close out 2024.
Yeah, definitely a lot of companies are feeling the pinch this year. So figuring out how to do more with less is more important than ever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we've been digging into this great blog post from Meet Record all about sales efficiency hacks, and I thought it'd be great to break it down together, kind of unpack some of the key takeaways, and see what our listeners can actually apply to their own businesses.
Sounds good to me.
Perfect. So maybe let's start with the basics. What exactly do we mean when we talk about sales efficiency?
Well, you can think of it like this. You've got your sales team, right? They're the engine of your business. And you put in resources like time, money, talent,
Hmm.
and what do you get out? Revenue, hopefully lots of revenue.
Right.
Sales efficiency is all about making sure that engine is running as smoothly as possible. It's about getting the maximum output revenue for every unit of input resources you put in.
Okay, I like that analogy. Kind of like maximizing your ROI on every sales effort.
Exactly.
Makes sense. But why is this so crucial in 2024 specifically? I mean, haven't companies always wanted to be more efficient?
Oh, absolutely. But I think this year it's gone from being a nice to have to a must have. We're seeing companies having to do more with less, right? Tighter budget, smaller teams.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
if you're not laser focused on efficiency, you're going to get left behind. It's really about survival at this point.
Okay, so efficiency equals survival in 2024. Got it. But how do we actually measure this thing?
Well, the Meet Record blog talks about a couple of key formulas. First, you've got gross sales efficiency.
Okay, and what is that?
It's a pretty simple way to look at the direct cost of acquiring new customers.
Hmm.
You basically take your annual recurring revenue, the ARR you generated, and divide that by your sales and marketing expenses. So let's say you brought in 1 million in ARR and you spent 200,000 on sales and marketing. Your gross sales efficiency would be 5.
Okay, so a higher number means you're more efficient.
Exactly. But then there's also net sales efficiency. That's a little more comprehensive because it takes into account all the expenses tied to sales, not just marketing and sales spend.
So things like operational costs, product development, that kind of thing.
Right. So it gives you a truer picture of what each customer actually costs you.
Interesting. So you've got these two ratios, gross and net,
Hmm.
and they're kind of your starting point for understanding your overall sales efficiency.
Yeah, exactly. But it doesn't stop there. The
Mhm.
blog also talks about a bunch of other metrics that sales leaders should be tracking.
Okay, like what? What are some of the ones that really stand out to you?
Well, aside from revenue growth, which I think is always top of mind, I'd say win rate is super important.
Win rate meaning how often you're actually closing deals.
Exactly. You can have a ton of leads in your pipeline, but if you're not converting them, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, you're leaving money on the table.
Exactly. And then there's customer acquisition cost, or CAC. How much are you spending to bring in each new customer? The lower, the better, obviously.
Mm.
And finally, I'd say sales cycle length is a big one. How long does it take to close a deal? The shorter, the better, because time is money, right?
Absolutely. So we're talking about data. Data is king.
100%. It's
Yeah.
not just about tracking these numbers, but actually using them to make decisions. Spot trends, identify areas for improvement.
Okay, so let's say I'm a sales leader listening to this and I'm thinking, all right, this is all great, but what can I actually do to improve my sales efficiency? What are some of the actionable strategies that Neat Record recommends?
Well, they outline 9 in total, and they're all good. But let's start with a few that can have a big impact right away. Number 1, set crystal clear expectations for your team. This sounds basic, but you'd be surprised how many teams struggle with this.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to be on the same page about their goals, their targets, what success looks like. It's like trying to build a house without a blueprint. Total chaos.
Love that now.
Right. And then the next thing is training. And I'm not just talking about onboarding new hires. I'm talking about ongoing skill development. The sales landscape is constantly changing, so you need to make sure your team is staying ahead of the curve.
What are some good ways to do that?
Well, you can provide access to, online courses, webinars, or even just have regular team meetings where you share best practices and case studies.
Okay, so clear expectations, ongoing training.
Yeah.
What else?
Then there's simplification and automation. Two sides of the same coin, really.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Mm-hmm.
Break that down for me.
Simplification is about getting rid of any unnecessary steps in your sales process, anything that slows things down or creates bottlenecks.
Makes sense.
And then automation is about using technology to handle all those repetitive manual tasks that eat up your team's time. Think CRMs, pipeline management tools, even entire sales operating systems.
So you're saying technology can be a real game changer when it comes to efficiency.
Absolutely. It can free up your team to focus on what they do best, building relationships, closing deals.
Okay, this is all making a lot of sense. But I can already hear some of our listeners saying, this all sounds great in theory, but how does it actually play out in the real world?
I get it. People want to see results, right? So let's say you're a company that sells software. You implement a CRM system, you invest in some sales training for your team, and you start using data analytics to identify your ideal customer profile.
Okay.
By targeting the right prospects, your sales team becomes more efficient. They close deals faster, your customer acquisition cost goes down because you're not wasting time on leads that are unlikely to convert, and ultimately your revenue grows even with a smaller budget.
I like it. That's a great example of how even a few strategic changes can have a ripple effect on your entire sales operation.
Exactly. It's about working smarter, not harder. It's about being strategic and intentional with every single sales effort.
So before the break, we were talking about all those tactical things, right? Like setting clear expectations, investing in training, using technology to simplify and automate. But the Meat Record blog also talks a lot about this idea of collaboration, specifically between sales and marketing.
Yeah, for years, those two departments have kind of been like ships passing in the night.
Right.
But if you really want to maximize efficiency, you've got to break down those silos, get those teams working together towards a common goal.
Because ultimately, they're both working towards the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? Growing the business.
Exactly. And when sales and marketing are aligned, you create this like seamless customer journey.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Marketing can qualify leads before they even get to the sales team.
Right, which saves everybody time and energy.
Exactly. And then sales can give feedback to marketing about, what's resonating with customers, what's not working. So marketing can refine their messaging and their campaigns and attract even better leads. It's like this virtuous cycle.
It really is. It's a win-win for everybody.
So how do we actually make this happen? How do we bridge that gap between sales and marketing?
Well, Meat Record suggests a couple of things. First, you got to have a shared set of metrics and goals.
Makes sense.
When both teams are being measured on the same outcomes, it creates this sense of shared responsibility. It encourages collaboration.
Right.
And then you also need to create opportunities for regular communication and feedback.
So like weekly meetings or a shared dashboard where everyone can see the data.
Exactly. Even just the dedicated Slack channel where sales and marketing can connect and, bounce ideas off each other.
Yeah, I've seen that work really well. When those teams are in constant communication, the whole process just flows so much more smoothly.
It really does. And then another key strategy that Meat Record highlights is focusing on quality leads.
So it's not just about getting as many leads as possible. It's about getting the right leads.
Exactly. It's about working smarter, not harder.
So instead of casting a wide net and hoping for the best, you're being more strategic and targeted in your outreach.
Precisely. This is where your ideal customer profile comes in. Really understanding the demographics, the pain points, the motivations of your perfect customer.
Right.
And then you can tailor your marketing campaigns and your sales strategies to attract those people. And when you're talking to the right people, your conversion rates go up, your sales cycle gets shorter, and your overall efficiency improves.
That makes a lot of sense.
Uh-huh.
I actually saw a stat recently that said 67% of B2B marketers say that generating high-quality leads is their top priority. So clearly, this is something that a lot of companies are struggling with.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely a challenge, but it's a challenge worth tackling because the payoff can be huge.
Okay, so we've talked about collaboration between sales and marketing, focusing on quality leads. What else? What are some other strategies that Meat Record recommends?
Well, one that I think is often overlooked is prioritizing customer retention.
Okay, why is that so important for sales efficiency?
Because it's way more cost-effective to keep your existing customers happy than it is to constantly be chasing new ones.
Oh yeah, I've heard that. It costs like 5 times more to acquire a new customer than it does to retain an existing one.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you can reduce churn and increase customer lifetime value, your efficiency is going to skyrocket.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But how do we actually do that? How do we shift our mindset from, always hunting for new customers to really nurturing the ones we already have?
Meat Record talks a lot about creating a customer-centric culture. Going above and beyond to meet customer needs, providing exceptional service, building those long-term relationships.
So it's not just about providing a good product or service. It's about creating a positive emotional connection with your customers.
Exactly. It could be something as simple as sending a personalized email or a handwritten thank you note. It's those little touches that can make a big difference.
I love that. It's about making your customers feel valued and appreciated.
Exactly. And when your customers feel valued, they're more likely to stick around. And that's good for everybody.
This is all fantastic stuff. But I know we've covered a lot of ground today. And I can already sense some of our listeners feeling a little overwhelmed. Like, okay, where do I even begin?
Right. It can definitely feel like drinking from a fire hose sometimes.
Exactly. So what's the one piece of advice you would give to our listeners who are ready to start improving their sales efficiency, but maybe aren't sure where to start?
I would say start by tracking your metrics. You can't improve what you don't measure, right? So take a look at your sales data, your CRM, your marketing reports. Where are the bottlenecks? Where are you seeing inefficiencies?
So it's kind of like doing a sales efficiency audit. Take a step back, assess the situation, and then identify those areas where you can make the biggest impact.
Exactly. Once you have a clear understanding of your current performance, you can start setting some realistic goals and develop a plan to achieve them.
And that's where the Meet Record blog can be so helpful. They provide all these actionable strategies and real-world examples that you can adapt to your own business.
It's a great resource for sure, but even beyond just reading the blog, I would encourage everyone listening to have a conversation with their team.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah.
Why is that conversation so important?
Because sales efficiency isn't just about implementing tools and processes. It's about creating a culture of efficiency.
Yeah.
And that starts with communication. Talk to your team about the challenges you're facing, the goals you're trying to achieve, and how you can work together to improve.
I love that. It's about getting everyone on board, creating that shared understanding and working together towards a common goal.
Exactly. When you empower your team to be part of the solution, you unlock their creativity, their insights, their passion, and that's when the magic really happens.
So to wrap things up, if our listeners take away just one thing from this deep dive, what should it be?
Sales efficiency is not a destination. It's a journey. It's about continuous improvement, constantly striving to do more with less, and making sure that every sales effort is aligned with your business goals.
It's about working smarter, not harder. It's about using data to inform your decisions. It's about empowering your team and fostering a culture of collaboration.
And most importantly, it's about taking action. Don't let this deep dive be just another podcast episode that, fades into the background noise.
Right.
Use the insights that we've discussed today to make a real difference in your business.
Okay, so to all the sales and revenue leaders out there, we challenge you to embrace the challenge, to make sales efficiency a priority, and to watch your business thrive in 2024 and beyond.
And remember, you don't have to do it alone. We're all in this together.
That's right. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into sales efficiency. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep crushing those sales goals. Okay, so we've talked about why sales efficiency is so crucial, and we've even touched on some of those tactical strategies that companies can use to improve. But I want to kind of bring it all together. For those sales and revenue leaders who are listening, what can they do right now today to start boosting their efficiency?
Well, Meet Record actually ends their blog with a really powerful question. They ask, are you tracking sales efficiency in your business? And I think it's a question that every sales leader needs to ask themselves.
It's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day. Right? You're managing your team, you're trying to close deals, hit your targets. But if you're not taking the time to step back and analyze your efficiency, you could be leaving a lot of potential on the table.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be complicated. Start by identifying those key metrics that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Your win rate, your customer acquisition cost, your sales cycle length. Look at your sales data, your CRM, your marketing reports. Where are the bottlenecks? Where are you seeing inefficiencies?
So it's kind of like doing a sales efficiency audit.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
take a step back, you assess the situation, and then you identify those areas where you can make the biggest impact.
Precisely. And once you have a clear understanding of your current performance, you can start setting some realistic goals and developing a plan to achieve them.
And that's where the Meet Record blog is so helpful. They really do provide a roadmap for doing just that. They have actionable strategies, they have real-world examples, they even have templates that you can use.
It's a fantastic resource. But even beyond just reading the blog, I would challenge everyone listening to do one thing today. Have a conversation with your team.
Okay, I love that. Why is that conversation so important?
Because sales efficiency isn't just about implementing tools and processes. It's about creating a culture of efficiency. And that starts with communication. Talk to your team about the challenges you're facing, the goals you're trying to achieve, and how you can work together to improve.
I love that. It's about getting everyone on board, creating that shared understanding, and working together towards a common goal.
Exactly. When you empower your team to be part of the solution, you unlock their creativity, their insights, their passion. And that's when the magic really happens.
So to wrap things up,
Mm.
if our listeners take away just one thing from this deep dive, what should it be?
Sales efficiency is not a destination. It's a journey. It's about continuous improvement. It's about constantly striving to do more with less. And it's about making sure that every sales effort is aligned with your business goals.
It's about working smarter, not harder. It's about using data to inform your decisions. It's about empowering your team and fostering a culture of collaboration.
And most importantly, it's about taking action. Don't let this deep dive be just another podcast episode that fades into the background noise.
Right.
Use the insights that we've discussed today to make a real difference in your business.
So to all the sales and revenue leaders out there, we challenge you to embrace the challenge, to make sales efficiency a priority, and to watch your business thrive in 2024 and beyond.
And remember, you don't have to do it alone. We're all in this together.
That's right. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into sales efficiency. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep crushing those sales goals.